Hi, welcome to Leftover Books. Tonight we're going to do something special. We're going to read, it's an interview my sister did with our father. Now, he passed away in 2008, and she found this recently, this college project she did, and shared it with me. So I thought it would be awesome to share with everybody. So I'm just going to go ahead. Whoops, sorry. And this involves the anti-war rallies or riots that happened back in the 60s. Hello, I'm going through some school files and I found this interview I did of Dad. It's pretty cool to have this story documented. I thought you might appreciate it too. Imagine sitting at the kitchen table and listening to him tell the story with the smell of Marlboros and stale coffee in the air. So, what kind of role did you play in the anti-war rallies of the 60s? Well, I was surrounded by the 60s movement and played an observational role. I was in the center of the action. I wanted to see all the action, though I never bought into the whole philosophy of the movement. The best way to get into the action was to follow the news teams right behind the cameramen. Where did all this take place? In Madison, Wisconsin, on the campus. What was your big interest in the rallies? To see how ideologies could affect the national policy. Were there any outcomes that you were hoping for through all of it? No, I viewed it practically. What I did see through the new flower children were new paradigms and new philosophies affecting the mainstream policies. At the time, the mainstream media had no buy into it, but capitalism bought into everything it could make a dollar on. Musicians timing the songs to only be so many minutes long for a record, bell-bottom clothing in clothing stores becoming the radical dress. These were scooped up in a heartbeat. The original head shops were underground fronts for selling drugs and bootleg records. They were all eventually funded commercially, but the mainstream media still denied anything going on. How would you describe the experience of following the rallies? Highest energy time only happening on the campuses. The strength of the music was there. There was an intellectual plateau that just can't be beat. It was such a neat contrast to all coexist. There were graduate students in the top floors of the building with their beards hanging down to their waists, working on government-funded projects, while back on the streets were the back-to-nature people who would overturn any vehicle found with government license plates. There was a small kernel of true believers. 50% were merely following the crowd, looking for a way to go. A bunch like me followed them looking for the action, to see what was going on. There was strength and power in the underground newspapers with their radical impact. Today there's just the Shepherd Express and the Onion, which are comparatively watered-down fluff. They, the underground newspapers, even showed pictures and family history and addresses of all the narcs. Nothing was sacred. They upturned anything that was social. Everyone paid attention to it, though they wouldn't admit it. Did any of this change your views? No, I analyzed it all, but I wouldn't buy into it. To ultimately live that life of a commune socialistic doesn't work long term. Human nature wants things all of its own. It will lead that way. It reinforced my belief in capitalism. It was always alive and well. Dope, pipes, music, or bell bottoms, always thriving. That's what the hippies were against, but were but they were a very main part of it. Do you believe that the hippies had a realistic goal? It was a real attempt, and they had the genuine ideals to do it, though they didn't realize that they were participating in it at the time. Did the anti-war rallies have any effect on your family? Not directly. It worried them about me. They would see what was happening on the news and hope I wasn't a part of it. They could only observe. They had no comprehension of the reality of it. Me and another guy once dissolved a main planned demonstration. We set up our radios so that they were on the same frequency channel and convinced them to go another way. We gave them the wrong directions, telling them that there were police with tear gas in certain areas. The movement was all in shambles. We had no cause or reason in it, just did it for fun. I was close to the Mayflower truck that held the explosives for the bombing in it. It was stored in a warehouse right next to the TV shop that I worked in. One night I jumped the fence by the truck to check out that area. The next day, after the bombing, the FBI was there, and they had asked me to compare shoe prints with the ones found in the dirt near the truck. It was a good thing that I was wearing different shoes that day, or else I would have been under suspicion for the bombing. I discovered there was an interesting mob psychology. I was following a riot and suddenly came to and looked down and noticed I had a brick in my hand. I realized that I had no recollection of the last 3 blocks. It scared me. I had no intention of caring about the cause, yet I checked out for 3 blocks. I was always impressed with how friendly everyone was. You could walk up to somebody who was overturning a bus or tearing down property, and they would carry on a normal conversation with you. The ROTC guys were the only straight-looking guys. They were standoffish and not as friendly. This was the biggest contrast. You'll never see this again. So how did this affect your view on the government? I always felt it was rotten and crooked. The movement reinforced it and brought it forward to the attention of the public. I didn't do any good, maybe for a while. It didn't do any good, maybe for a while. I still believe that. My views have never changed. Anyone who was ever involved in the happenings gets connected somehow at some time. There was the Captain Crunch guy who first started the hacking movement by breaking the long-distance codes using a whistle from a cereal box. I still see the guy now and then at conventions. The other guy, or the guy who invented the Apple computer, they were there. Every new piece of technology, nothing was sacred or secure. Within 1 week, it would be torn off, torn apart, and examined. The first touch-tone phone in a phone booth was ripped out within 24 hours. After the bombing, video monitors were put up in the streets, and those were gone within 24 hours. In Madison, there was an intellectual pursuit that had nothing to do with breaking down the system. There was the method of blue box, which is the hacker's device of defeating long-distance billing. The plans were published in Ramparts magazine, and that day it was put out, the government pulled them all off the shelves. They were then sent out through the underground media. Was there any violence at the rallies? Only property damage. The cops now and then would beat people with their sticks. Although I can't blame them. It got out of hand. Everyone was tear gassed. We all carried a bottle of diluted vinegar, which dissolved it. Once a tear gas cannon was used down the whole State Street. It created a big fog of it. I also had it thrown into my apartment above State Street once. I didn't stay there that night. The National Guard guys didn't do anything. They were friends with the radicals. They all sat and talked. So how did this affect your view on the government? I always felt it was rotten and crooked. The movement reinforced it and brought it forward to the attention of the public. It didn't do any good. Maybe for a while. I still believe that. My views never changed. Okay, I already read that one. So, how did these anti-war rallies impact your life? They reinforced my belief in capitalism. I saw it thrive through the whole movement. Everything was really open, and it was a coexisting of everyone with their contrasts. When I later worked in Milwaukee, I experienced such a culture shock. People were dull and boring. All they cared about was beer, brats, work, sleep, and drink. It took quite a while to get over the shock. That's it. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.